Welcome to One-on-One with Expert Flyer. I'm your host, Lisa Caslin, and welcome to our show. Today we've got an exciting guest. We've got Jim Pickell with us, and he is the president of HomeExchange.com. Welcome, Jim.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. Great to be here.
Yeah, okay. So we've been doing a lot of stories lately about the sharing economy. Everybody's talking about Airbnb and Uber and Lyft and all these guys. And you kind of fit into this mix in some way, shape, or form. There's some similarities, but I know there's a lot of differences. And I wanted to give you the opportunity and give our listeners and viewers an opportunity to really learn what home exchange is and the differences that you bring to the table.
Sure. It's even funny to hear you say there's this trend around the sharing economy, and we kind of fit in because really the purest form of the sharing economy is when people share. They share assets, property, homes, cars, and no money changes hands between them. I jokingly call Home Exchange a 24-year-old startup because we're reinventing ourselves, and we've been getting a lot of attention lately, but we've been around and doing this long before people started renting out mattresses and rooms in their home, and it's pretty fundamentally a different experience.
Okay, so we understand sort of loosely the model of Airbnb. You basically go on the site, you shop around for an apartment or a room in somebody's home, and then you pay. It's largely a reduced rate than what you might see in a hotel, but in your case, it's basically free barring a membership, correct?
Yeah, we like to think of ourselves as a club, and it's a very affordable annual membership fee of $150. That's it. And then in the club, it's almost like a social club. You interact with other club members that almost in a surprising way will be so much like you can't even imagine. And then you navigate with them almost like a dating site for your home. So in short, you stay in my home, I stay in yours.
Okay. So how is, from a business standpoint, how is Home Exchange sort of nipping away at the profits of the larger hotels? Do you have any kind of data on that?
Yeah, well, I think that let me start by defining the sharing economy, because more than anything, it's a term of convenience, and it's used depending on how you use it in the context. It means different things, and so to me, the sharing economy includes any personal asset that is idle that you put to work. That's at the broadest extent, and a lot of people struggle with including the peer-to-peer rentals like Airbnb within that model. I don't have a big issue with that. You have spare assets as a person and you want to put those to work. It's a smart thing to do. As far as us, the market as a whole and how revenue flows, for starters, the advent of Airbnb has actually been tremendous wind behind our sales. We've doubled our membership in the last 4 years. And for a 24-year-old company, that's pretty impressive, right? And I think a big reason is that the concept of having someone in your home was always novel for people. And now millions of people, I think I read a statistic a few months ago that in one day, 1 million rooms around the world were booked on Airbnb.
Yes,
so it's no longer your crazy Aunt Edna that's doing it. It's your brothers and sisters and your children. And, all of a sudden people are starting to realize, it's silly that I'm willing to sleep in a bed in a hotel that hundreds have been in before me and not use my guest room in a meaningful way or my home. So, and then, on to your question of how it impacts the hotel revenue. Well, hotels have brands, and those brands are associated with a standard of quality and a standard of service. And I think there's always going to be a place for brands, especially, let's say you're a business traveler. You don't want to wade through hundreds of reviews on what a home might be like and the interaction that led to the review. Try to filter through it and read between the lines. If you have a budget for business travel, and you want a 3 or a 4 or a 5-star, and you need a conference room and Wi-Fi with certain brands, you're going to be able to get what you're looking for. But now what's really exciting is, imagine that let's say you've moved out of the country, or you've moved, like me, from the East Coast to the West Coast, and there's a high school reunion. And literally, and we hear these stories, you can go online and you can find a place either with us to exchange, think of it as a dating site for your home, or on even a peer-to-peer rental, and you can stay in either the house you grew up in or the one next door or a block away. That's not something that a brand is ever going to be able to offer you. And think of the impact of that. I have a business trip tomorrow. I'm going to go on to one of the online, the OTAs, and just click and book. But think if you can actually stay in the neighborhood you grew up, and emotionally how that can impact you.
Yeah.
And frankly, I don't think the hotels are missing the opportunity, but I don't know that they quite have their arms around what's happening. They view it as a new channel. I don't think it's really squeezing them, even though it's growing. I think a lot more people are traveling, but I don't think they quite understand why people are looking for these opportunities. And I think it's deeply sociological and psychological, that it's more akin to a movement than a shift in preferences and cost.
It's interesting, very interesting. And you brought up this conundrum on the business traveler side, and we just did a survey, and one of the questions we asked was, it was more of a question for the business traveler and corporate policies. And while many of them were free to use an Uber service, let's say, to get around, corporate travel departments were very reluctant to allow Airbnb accommodations. And we sort of came to the conclusion that it was a duty of care issue, where the companies didn't quite feel safe in allowing their employees to stay in a house that was kind of out of reach. There was a disconnect there. So interesting. I guess the hotels will still have plenty of opportunity on the business side. It's more the consumer side that's.
Yeah, I think so. And while there are some similarities with what's going on with Uber, there are some really material differences. And if you think of it this way, historically, the taxis around the world, not all, they were notorious for dirty, smelly cabs with a low level of service and controlling a monopoly. And that's where Uber stepped in, and it offered clean cars, a glass of water, a bottle of water, and convenience. Now, there's a big difference where the hotel industry, they have clean hotel rooms. They have your bottle of water. They get what you need. They understand service levels. So the shift into the sharing economy isn't driven by an app or a movement to a different level of service.
Mm-hmm.
It's something entirely different driving that. So that's important to consider. And the second thing is on the duty of care. We've been in business for 24 years. We've facilitated well over 1 million exchanges. We've had no issues. I mean, search home exchange, homeexchange.com in Google, and pick any sensational word you want to look for and try to find an issue. Now, having said that, vacation homes and room rentals, that's been around for hundreds of years. So what Airbnb is not doing is not new. And if someone's sitting in a hammock in the backyard and the string breaks, to me, I think the media loves the story, but I think as a percentage of what's going on, maybe it's a bit higher than what's happening in the hotel industry because of regulations, and they have the health department reviewing hotels with 500 rooms. I think it's a red herring. I think it's important to have the discussion around duty of care. I think that the going back to the wading through hundreds of reviews, the social policing that now exists.
Mhm.
When a room's been around on Airbnb or on our site for a while, you have a pretty good sense of what to expect by the interaction, the past reviews, the feedback, the pictures. And yeah, there is certainly the edge case scenario, like I said, and I was shocked when someone, literally, I think it was a story in the media where a hammock broke and someone got hurt.
Yeah,
Well, that could happen at a hotel too,
of
right?
course. Yeah,
So,
the bathtub. Okay, so let's talk about some practical questions for someone who might want to take advantage of this. So let's say it all sounds great. Okay, here I am. I'm sitting up in Lake Carmel, Putnam County. Where the heck is that, right? And I would love to exchange my home for something in, let's say, Paris. Well, I don't know. Is that really a practical wish on my part? Or is that an equitable exchange? Am I going to be out of luck? Do I even bother?
so again, I love the members at a travel show that told me how they think about us as the dating site for your home.
Great.
And the reality is, if you look at the statistics of online dating, 15% of the marriages in the United States started with people meeting online. I remember when that whole movement, I'll say, started, and people were embarrassed to tell each other they met online. It was awkward. They wouldn't admit it. And, usually it was one of the two. Please don't tell anyone we met online. It feels desperate, right? And now people are proud of it. Oh, we met on, what site did you meet on? And that tells a lot about you, right? If you met on, JDate or Catholic Match or whatever it is, that says something about you in some way, or Match.com or Tinder. So what I've been consistently not shocked by, but my expectations have been exceeded is we get a lot of feedback from our members, and they become our evangelists. And some of them are people in a little tiny house off the beaten track in Modesto, but Modesto's in California, and California is a place that people dream of visiting. And you mentioned Paris. Well, Paris just happens to be our #2 most popular destination site in the world. And Parisians, they love to travel and they love to escape the busy tourism season, and they get a lot of downtime where they can travel because that's built into their work structure.
Yeah.
So, and the beauty is that in Putnam, you can easily you do a search in Paris, figure out what you want. You want a flat, you want a child-friendly place with 3 bedrooms, and you filter it out. You can send 10, 20, 30 inquiries first of all, and number 2, my best advice is make it personal. So even though I say it's a dating a dating site for your home, the reality is people are exchanging with people. It's reciprocal. And a lot of times you have, let's say, a retired couple in Paris that can work or travel or be anywhere at any time. And if you make it personal and you say, you know what, it's the Putnam County Ice Shaving Festival next week. We've been at it for 24 years. We're ready to leave this year. There's not a morning that goes by where my wife doesn't call me down and say, hey, you're not going to believe this one. And my first reaction is, we have enough travel planned this year. And then I go down and something catches my eye. You make it personal and you explain what's unique about Putnam. I can almost guarantee that if you wanted to go to Paris, you gave yourself adequate time, made it personal, put some photos of your family and what you like to do in your area, guaranteed you can find a place in Paris, no problem.
Very cool. Okay, well, I just want you to know, a side note, I registered this morning.
Good. So well, let's make it happen.
I'm going to let you know.
Yeah, and I will tell you something. I was a member before I had any association with the company for 2 years. And at one point, we wanted to go somewhere, and I asked my wife, well, that would be really expensive to go to Sardinia for a month. What about that whole home exchange thing. And she said, well, we keep getting these inquiries. We never even look at them. I said, let's try it out. Let's write a letter talking about who our family is and why we want to go and why this is important to our children because their grandparents are from Italy. Immediately, we had a flood of responses. We'd never done that with the site before. And that's why it's fundamentally different. It's not a landlord-tenant relationship like a peer-to-peer rental. It's the beginning of a friendship in almost every case.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. Okay, I'm so excited, Jim. All right, so a couple more quick things.
Sure.
Are there any regions in the world that you think maybe you should stay away from? Are some really, really spectacular where you want to maybe direct your seeking towards?
Sure. So, well, let me start with the reality that the high tourist zones of the world, admittedly, they have a lot of listings, right? Amsterdam, New York, Los Angeles, Paris, San Francisco, Copenhagen, Barcelona. We've got good coverage there. Even in regions that are taking a hard view against rentals, usually we work hard to distinguish ourselves from rentals because it's not a commercial transaction. So that opens the door. The other thing is that a lot of what we've seen over recent years is the people that are attracted by the concept of home exchange, they're looking to do something new, different, off the beaten track where there may not be a hotel. So we learned an interesting statistic last year that 1 out of every 1,000 people in Iceland are home exchangers. They're on our site literally. And being in travel, you probably know Iceland's this hot and emerging territory, and they love to get out of there and they love to see the world. Same thing with Australia and New Zealand. If you find areas where the culture is welcoming and they love to travel, you're going to find home exchangers. In terms of where not to go, I don't have anything specific. From time to time, we look at travel advisories and we advise our members to do the same. Obviously, take Israel, for example. A lot of people would argue it's the best time ever to go, but that is something that we want to be sure our members are informed about and understand where they're going and how. We're not a travel agency. Do you mind if I shut my door real quickly? The 3-year-old. So we're not in the business of travel advisories. We want our people to be informed. We don't send them anywhere, but I don't have anything specific that I would say don't go there.
Okay.
And we get a lot of feedback from our members, and usually it's positive feedback.
Good. Okay. So before I let you go, is there anything that we didn't talk about that we need to talk about or that we need to know? Anything coming up or anything, any changes to the services, anything like that?
Yeah, two points I'd allude to. And one is, I think a lot of people try home exchange because they think, oh, I wonder if this really works. It's not that expensive. Maybe I can save a few bucks. And they stick around after 1 or 2 exchanges. They stick around because quite literally it changes their whole approach to travel and their lives in so many ways that are different to capture, right? And it's the stories of our members that make it interesting. And so I think that comes across, but I just want to make that point. Also, in March of this year, we're going to be introducing probably the biggest change to how our service works in 24 years. We're very excited about it. And I think the options people will have, and like you alluded, being in Putnam and wanting to go to Paris, the options it will create for our members around the world, it's going to go up not incrementally, but in the order of magnitude. So for someone like you, or let's say even harder, for someone in Hawaii that wants to go to Paris, and maybe in Paris they want to go to the Canary Islands, it's going to open up tremendous opportunity, especially for people with a desirable home in Hawaii that have no problem exchanging. They just have a problem exchanging with Europe. it's going to open up many more opportunities. And we've been at work on this for, we moved quickly on things. This one's been under wraps for 3 years now, and it's going to be a big change for our members and our community.
Okay, so we need to look out for that announcement in March.
Yes, stay
Okay.
tuned.
Maybe we'll have to have you back again.
I'd love to come back. It's been a lot of fun.
All right, listen, Jim, it was wonderful. Thank you so much for all the time today. It was a wealth of information.
Thank you. Have a wonderful weekend, and look forward to talking to you again soon.
Same here. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.